Hey everyone, I'm Amy. I definitely was thinking about that to myself, and the answer can be so deep, but you know what, the first thing that came to my mind was not a 4-day, but a 3-day work week. I wish that future generations could thank us for that. Maybe one day. So I just wanted to make some observations, being in this space for some time now, on what future generations thinking means to me and to many that I've spoken with and sat with, and observations I've had. A lot of us became interested in this way of thinking, of approaching decisions systematically, that really holds both our ancestors and future generations closely. And it puts the generations, age and time, as the major unit of analysis to make better decisions or make better choices. Many of us, including for Foundations for Tomorrow and many allies in this space, became interested in the ways that, as Sophie mentioned as well, different countries and our own country and multilateral entities were establishing these different precedents, whether in policy, law, the judicial setting, parliamentary groups, intentional public service reforms. This great report, Now for Long-Term Oxford Martin Commission, wanted to see sunset clauses in all laws that funneled out outdated policy or clauses throughout law, and wanted to see that achievements needed to be shown for the 21st century. I found that really interesting. And I think all these signals a move towards wanting to protect some of the more maybe obvious interests and needs of what future generations will inherit. And behind a lot of those structural ways of doing future generations policy is really a mindset. And I think that we've spoken a lot about the mindset as one of the missing pieces here. And for me, a mindset is really, it's a belief and attitude that cares deeply about people across time horizons. And it's a day-to-day it's an intentional practice. Not saying that it's going to be a mindful practice, although Taylor, maybe we could create a mindful app on future generations thinking. Who knows? A lot of, futurists, people in sustainable development, different experts have become really curious on how different cultures and people across time have enabled this sort of practice. You've probably heard of 7 generations principles from the Indigenous Iroquois community. These sorts of thinking help us in our decision making see the impact of our actions over 7 generations, not 1, 2, 3 days, years, 7 generations, and that we have a responsibility to the unborn descendants that we may never meet. Just a couple other quick ones that are really interesting to me is the concept of cathedral thinking, which is that we're not alone as a generation, that generations will build upon the resources, and the very act of deploying present-day resources for future generations enables that transfer across generations, which is how we live. We live in an ongoing transfer of knowledge and resources across generations, across millennia. And the final one I wanted to talk about quickly is this concept of deep time sort of thinking and reckoning, which does many things, but it kind of allows us to put in the middle of our diplomacy or decision making geological or kind of cosmic timeframes, again, as a unit of analysis. It asks you to sort of clash with the guilt of the past, the deep history of your neighbourhood, of your communities. And sometimes I take in my day-to-day life some of these principles from these maybe relatively provocative mindsets, and I go to, say, local council meetings or coming up to election times, and I just sit and I observe when people are putting into practice, naturally, these ways of thinking and deliberating. And I find that a really interesting task, and maybe that's just me, but I encourage that observation, looking at these different future dialogues and ways that we can cultivate them, and go to different conversations and see how they're used in modern society. And sometimes it feels like we've lost this organic sense of doing diplomacy, and I think that's contributing to a lot. So aside from these cognitive aids, a big thing about future generations' mindset is, for me, is looking at other things. What part of the brain actually is used in planning? What part of the brain is used in imagination? We're in this super fast-paced, immediate gratification world. Like, are we taking the time to train our brain? I know we had before a quote, train self to do nothing. You use it or lose it from a neurological perspective. When are we taking that time? How is it encouraged? How is it incentivized? And also, another part of Future Gen's mindset is observing all these big trends that we've spoken about that's happening all over the world, that's so entrenched, things that are happening outside of democratic control, big tech, AI, environmental collapse. They're getting more and more complex. And I come to the conclusion that I think as well, one of the big pieces is that we sort of need to look at the power and vitality of younger people and younger generations living in the world now that are trend-setting new ways, trend-setting new expectations, trend-setting new mindsets, rooted in curiosity, creativity. I think that's, a really important thing to cultivate. And so FFT and many allies, what we're really interested in is cultivating this mindset in leaders, empowering leaders in as many ways as possible. It sort of starts to counter-influence maybe some of the more dominant forces, 24/7 media cycles, news cycles, short-term election cycles, the politics of seat winnings and maybe sort of scrap and burn sort of policy tactics, and things like that. So it offers a bit of an alternative way to think about the actions that you're making today and how it will impact people into the future. And in saying that, it's a mindset, but FFT was really interested in, wow, these are all these amazing different practices of genuine stewardship. Why can't we also do policy as day-to-day as possible in that way? Why can't we govern and do policy in that way? So on that, I'll hand over to Taylor to talk about a framework that we've been working on. Always fun. Thank you.